Tonight on CinemaScope, Bruce Willis. Is he the lovable action movie cop or a miserable, egocentric jerk? Find out now!
Welcome, one and all, to CinemaScope, the first ever, but far from the last episode of CinemaScoped, where we're gonna take a look at a couple movies that we've heard some stuff about, some good things, some bad things, and we're gonna see if the rumors can be believed. And
I love it.
It's what we got to do. I am Tyler, aka Detective Brock Rocket, aka Detroit Brock City, and I'm joined today and all the times with my good friend Aaron, aka Squandered Octopus, aka Squan D. How's it going, man?
Going great. You pitched this show to me a while ago, and I could not be more excited to be asked to be a part of it. And concept alone, I'm in. And then throw in you and your production, and look at what you did. Look at this magical thing that happened. This is amazing.
It's not bad. It's not bad. We've been talking about this for like an embarrassingly long time, kind of. I think. Yeah. I was looking at it, I think the original idea was pitched in like November or something like that.
I think so.
And yeah, we're finally doing it,
Fuck yeah, dude.
And now we're doing it, we're running.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, how you doing? How do you start these things since we've already been talking for like 20 minutes at this point?
We'll have to get probably a little less green to get these transitions down, but I think we just get right into it. We're pitching around ideas of what we wanted the episodes to be and what the structure would be, and the first one that's really stuck was how bad Cop Out was and how iconic Die Hard is. So we decided to make this episode, as you can see from the title, Bruce Willis, and
Bruce Willis, baby.
We're going to talk about Die Hard and Cop Out. So if you've watched it already, then great. You're going to be able to chat along with us. If you haven't, then there's going to be a lot to discuss. And I think we just dive right into Die Hard.
Yeah, I'm into it. Let's go with the good in this good, bad, and ugly scenario. Good. Die Hard. Let's go.
Die Hard.
So yeah, Die Hard, I feel like of the two movies, this is the one that I would say I'm confident most people have probably seen.
Yeah.
This is
iconic.
I will say, a bit embarrassingly, I don't think I had seen, well, no, I know for a fact now, having just watched it, I had not seen this in its entirety, like until 3 days ago.
That was my question, is if you hadn't seen it at all, or if you hadn't seen it, so how much had you seen previously?
So when you first pitched it and we were talking about it, I thought I had seen probably like at least 60-70%, just because from being like on TNT, like just catching it little bits here and there. And there's so many, like, obviously there's all these like iconic, him in the vent, with the lighter and like all of those things that's just like you can't miss. But while I was watching it, like one of my very early notes while I was watching it is like, I have not seen way more of this movie than I thought. Like, I'm pretty sure I had only seen like the iconic bits. And then from there, I was like, yeah, I've seen the movie. But
filled it in. Yeah, you fill it in.
Yeah, there were surprises. I have some notes where like, is this a bad guy? And then like very soon after, it's like, oh no, that wasn't a bad guy. Like, it's rough.
Okay.
But
I'm super interested to hear from your point of view first, because I have seen it multiple times. I started with Die Hard 3 on VHS. My parents had it. I popped it in. Samuel L. Jackson. Cool, let's do this. And Jeremy Irons is a bad guy, and you do get a little snippet of Die Hard 1 in it, of Hans Gruber falling, because in 3, Jeremy Irons is his brother who's getting revenge. And I was like, that would be interesting. It never occurred to me, because it's not called Die Hard 3. It's called Die Hard with a Vengeance. I thought it was its own movie. I didn't know there were other Die Hards. So I was like, okay, weird. Years later, I finally seen it. And so So I'm very familiar with Die Hard. So I'm really curious, like, what you think from the get-go of this movie.
Yeah, I tell you, it was. I do have to say, because like I'm used to watching movies, especially from like the '80s and stuff, that like everybody's like, oh, it's a classic, oh, it's great. But I
Yeah.
didn't. There's only a handful, like movies like Rocky and stuff that my dad absolutely loved. Those were like the only
Mhm.
ones I saw growing up, as far as like the old classics. So
Mhm.
half the time, watching like the first time I saw the original Top Gun,
Mhm.
it's Top Gun, and like I basically knew the movie by this point, but like, oh, it's one of these great movies, and it's like, fine, like it's
Yeah.
fun, I guess, but like whatever.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I very much thought this was a really good. I get it. Like I get why people talk about it all the time. Like
Yeah.
it's I especially because I'm not particularly big on Bruce Willis or
Mhm.
like, and also growing up to where my experience with Bruce Willis is mostly from like, I don't know what, like '06 forward. Like he was
Yeah.
kind of like starting to phone it in by that point. Like I think the only good
Mhm.
like Bruce Willis movie I know of is Pulp Fiction.
Mhm.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
like he's like really good in this. Like
Yeah.
he's like a really good actor, it turns out. Like
Yeah. Well, okay, so I'll only challenge that in that it's not like he has to deliver a moving monologue, right? Like he's very good at being Bruce Willis in movies,
okay, yeah.
right? So like I wouldn't put him up there with like you know, Heath Ledger or something, like a thespian, maybe not.
Yeah.
But being a guy in a tense situation who's under a table, who's got to shoot a guy, in a tank top, like he sells that like a motherfucker.
Oh
He
yeah.
really does.
He's great at being that like I mean not even, I was gonna say every man, but it's not even really every man. He's good at being that specific like, New York cop, like
Yeah.
I'm just a guy trying to do good, sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like with that
Totally.
attitude,
Hmm.
uh yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. Sorry, I got a video auto playing and it's distracting me.
Oh
Um
boy.
yeah, I'm trying to think of a good place to start. Uh
I like just to get the ball rolling, but the very first scene of him on the plane gripping the thing is a really good character builder that you don't really see a lot in movies. Like a lot of times you have to get a few lines of dialogue with people and maybe like 20 minutes in you kind of understand who this character is. But like opening shot, guy gripping the thing and then seeing Bruce Willis and he's the main character. It's like, oh, this guy's already like I get he's a cop. Like the cover, right? Two burning buildings. I know this is a big action movie. It's got Bruce Willis in it, but he's scared of flying in planes. Like, oh, he's got a little humanity. So it's like great right off the bat in that sense.
yeah, I did like, I noticed cuz like yeah, the whole like opening on him gripping the freaking armrest, which already,
Yeah.
it's great cuz it shows you that he's nervous flying, and like he's got the
Hmm.
rings, so like is he married? Like
Yeah.
I guess he's married, and then
Hmm.
I did like though how he goes from being just like terrified of flying next to a dude who's like, "Oh, I do this all the time," and like he
Hmm.
gives that whole take your shoes off bit, which actually that's something that feeds into something else I want to talk about at some point.
Okay.
But then like when he goes to get the stuff out of his carry-on and he's got a gun,
Yeah.
it's like the movie goes, this guy's a badass without being like, look at this badass. Like it's still it like strikes a
Exactly.
really cool balance. I thought was dope.
A human balance. Yeah. Like, okay, this is a real guy. This isn't Jason Statham in the Transporter, obviously, which is years later, but like where action movies nowadays are very like this guy is infallible, this
Yeah.
guy is my action hero. Where John McClane really is like a human character, at least in these ones. Like Die Hard does eventually the series like follow that infallible action hero trope because there's like seven of them now and they're lesser in quality each time.
Yeah. I did.
But
That was one thing that was interesting. It was interesting watching this movie again, having not seen most of it and never like the whole
mhm.
time. After hearing people talk about it, because this is a movie that's been talked about. Like we're not. It's almost impossible for us to like cover any new ground here because like it's been talked about
Exactly.
so much. But
Yeah.
hearing people talk about, especially like the everyman element of it, and then actually seeing what they're referring to
Mhm.
was really. It was one of those that seems, at least from my perspective, like it didn't require those like nostalgic glasses to like
Mhm.
agree with, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
And it
Which I go ahead.
yeah, I just thought it was super interesting, just
I
as far as
think
his
it has a lot
performance.
to yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with John McTiernan, the director, because he did 1 and 3 and none of the other ones, and he has a really good visual style for these types of movies of like down to earth high action movies where like the action is directed really well, like your eyes are never going to each corner of the screen, it's very easy to follow when he's fighting someone and swinging, tying a guy up in a chain and throwing him up against a wall. It's always very exciting, and then it'll cut to somebody like slowly walking through a hallway, like is this guy gonna get caught, whatever. And so it's like the pacing is really well done. So the nostalgic glasses that you need sometimes to watch those old kind of movies that people talk about, you don't really need that one this one because it's pretty carefully crafted.
Yeah, that is I think that's my biggest takeaway as far as like understanding why this movie is such a, like, one of those classics that everybody talks about is just how well made it is. Like
Hmm.
the direction, first of all, I don't know. I've been trying to, going back when I was looking through my notes, I was trying to find like a great specific thing to illustrate my point. But like I just
Hmm.
the just general direction and like shot composition was
Hmm.
super interesting, and I felt like way more interesting than was necessary.
I
You
totally
know?
agree. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's all these like super interesting, like I remember when he's getting out of the limo, uh
Hmm.
when they first like, show up to the tower, and there's
Hmm.
like a shot, it's like a really like low angle shot, or high angle shot rather, which is clearly, I mean, fundamentally it's because he's standing and you got to get Argyle like all leaning for, leaning over in the, and they're different
Yeah.
heights, but like it
Yeah.
looks, the way the shot was put together looked super neat, like there's
Hmm.
a lot of like really angly, like very interesting angled shots just throughout it.
Agreed. Yeah,
uh
it's really well put together and edited too. Like there's a really good scene where Bruce or whatever, John McClane is fighting somebody, and it's a close up on them, or like his hands around somebody's neck or something, and then it jump cuts to one of the villain like henchman guys, his hands close up on like a bomb that he's doing, and then it zooms back out, and it was like really, it flows really well, like, oh, okay, and you know it's stuff that you don't normally pick up on unless you're like watching it for something like this where we're going to analyze it, in a filmmaking sense. But like
yeah.
that stuff goes unnoticed, but it really helps in pacing and flow and understanding. And a lot of directors don't do that. Like a lot of them don't think to do that.
That, and I feel like too, there was a lot of like camera moves, like pans and stuff, that
Hmm.
were similarly like really well timed and
Hmm.
like poignant in what it was doing. Like the when Hans finally gets a hold of like he's talking to the police chief, I think for the first time on the little
Hmm.
radio, like right after he shoots that other guy that I want to talk about at some point.
Okay.
Um, but while he's talking to him, it's just like a really like kind of classic, oh, look at this bad guy, sort of like, pan going around him. And then
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
at like a perfect timing in his when he's like really trying to like bear down on his like, no, I'm a sinister bad guy kind of thing. It just like
Hmm.
casually passes by the back of the dude's head, and like it's all like out of focus and shit, but you can still see where there's like where he's clearly like shot
Oh,
and killed this guy.
yes.
And like
Hmm.
there's a lot of little things like that that I noticed that
Yeah.
I was like surprised by. It almost
Yeah.
because, which I guess to be fair, a lot of it is because in my mind, like this is Die Hard. Like I feel like people are gonna watch Die Hard anyway. But I guess at the time, like it does have to be a good movie. Like nobody, Die Hard wasn't a thing, so
Hmm.
like I don't know. It's just it's interesting to watch it all get like earned.
Yes,
guess.
I think you put it really well where earlier when you said like it didn't have to be this good because it's Die Hard and like everybody likes it,
Yeah.
so you're gonna watch it anyways. And I think the headspace that a lot of people have about Die Hard nowadays is that it's a big dumb Bruce Willis action movie with guns and fire and bombs.
Yeah.
But like you can really pick this movie apart from a like a cinematography editing like we've been illustrating, and it actually holds up as a good movie in its own right.
Yeah, it is. It's just like a quality, like well directed. There was also who wrote this? Jeb
I don't know who
Stewart.
did the screenplay, but it is based on a novel, which I thought was interesting.
Okay. Dude who wrote this also wrote The Fugitive. That's a movie I haven't seen, but that's a popular movie, right?
Yeah, we might have to do that on one of these episodes.
Yeah, I'm into it. I've not seen a lot of Harrison Ford movies. It's kind of a shame.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, the other thing, like to compliment, I guess complimenting the direction is like the writing of this movie, like just structurally, this was such a tighter movie than I expected it to be. Like everything built so well onto each other, you know?
Yeah. It really followed the 3-act structure like almost perfectly, and the tension it just perfectly follows that arc, right? Like you can feel everything every minute you feel it getting a little more tense, a little more somebody's at stake, something new is happening, and it's it's great.
Yeah, and there's so
Really
much too, like nothing, no like little detail or just like choice in like, you know, the narrative or whatever goes to waste in a way that I think like I feel like it's probably more like classic filmmaking, you know, that because that's like an important rule to filming, but it's something that you don't see. We're too cool with like, you know, one-off gags that I feel like you don't see movies as tight anymore.
Yep.
But like everything
Agreed.
from like I guess the easiest example is you know, he's nervous on the plane, and so he talks to that guy who's like, yeah, I fly all the time. Here's the trick, you know, take your shoes off or whatever.
Fist with your feet, fist with your toes.
Which then 20 minutes later he does. And now he's like barefoot the whole time. And that ends up being a very like,
exactly.
Not only is it like an iconic element, like it's one of the first things when we really got into this, Diggle said in the chat, the man had no shoes. Talk about a stressful situation. Like, because the whole time watching that, like, of all the movies that you could have no shoes on while you're living it, like this was unfortunate. Like the whole time, it just added every time he's like running for something, and they have the like slap of his feet on like on just like the concrete, like.
But I could just imagine these guys in the Foley room doing the audio, just like slapping just chicken like, against wet boards, you know?
And like, and then, so that's the whole thing. And then obviously, you know, the glass bit, like that's kind of iconic, you know? But even too, when he has the conversation with the officer whose name I keep forgetting, Sergeant Powell. Al
Powell.
Old Al Powell. That's a hell of a name.
Yeah, it is. I never realized it was Al Powell.
Right. But yeah, when he's like talking to him after, like, you know, they shoot out all the glass, which is also just like a really smart move on, and like that's only because freaking Hans met him like on accident earlier and noticed that he wasn't wearing any shoes, and so that translates into being like, oh, I don't know, the whole thing is just really well like orchestrated. But then like, so he's bleeding and he drags himself bleeding into the bathroom, and he's pulling like glass out of his feet, which also I knew he was gonna bleed because I knew he was gonna step in glass, but he's like bleeding like a son of a bitch. He is bleeding so damn much. I was like,
they did not hold back.
Yeah, it was it was rough. But like while he's sitting there pulling glass out of his feet, just like making conversation to like distract him, his like getting to know you conversation with Al, he references feet twice. Like when he
Does he
first
really? I
brings
didn't
it
notice
up,
that.
he's like, "Are you flat-footed?" Because he's trying to figure out how
Oh yeah.
this guy that's clearly like had a beat ended up on the desk. And the guy was like,
Oh,
"No, no,
yeah.
no, you know, I had an accident." And after that, he was like, "Did you run over your captain's foot?" Like he's clearly got feet on the brain because he's pulling glass out of his
Definitely.
feet.
Oh, that's so good.
And like it's such an unnecessary like thing to keep on, you know?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And especially like Argyle too, like the young kind of like, you know, late 80s, early 90s hip hop guy who's never driven a limo before, who used to be a tank, you know. Okay, he was cute. Their interaction was nice. But then for him to come into use at the end
Mm-hmm.
and punch the guy, you know, and take him out and like be useful is like, okay, so nothing is brought up to ever for no reason. Something is brought up and it will be useful somehow.
Yeah. And I will say the only time I appreciate it because of you know it was well done, but the
Mhm.
also going off of the conversation where he's pulling glass out of his feet seemed kind of out of nowhere. Al's like, "No, I shot a kid," and like that almost seemed needlessly rough. You know what I mean? Like I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, Al!" Like,
Yeah.
you know. And then
Yeah.
sure, you know, it comes around, and when he saves his life at the end, now he's
Full
got the confidence
circle.
to you
Yeah.
know. So like, I get it, but that was the one time where I was like, I don't need this,
Yeah.
you
What is
know,
this
like,
for?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, I just shot a 13-year-old kid. And then like it almost never, unless you're thinking about it in this way, it never comes back
Mhm.
up. He just
No,
happens to save his life
definitely
at the
not.
end. Like,
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think to John McTiernan's credit, he tries to make a bigger deal out of it than a normal scene, right? Like where the the camera after he shoots the guy, the camera is right down the barrel of the gun and it kind of like goes sideways. You can see Al's facial expression and that's
mhm.
when it clicks for you of like, oh right, he wasn't able to pull his gun out before because of the trauma and now he overcame that and yeah,
Yeah,
okay, yeah. But it does seem excessive to just bring that up in that conversation
it just,
originally.
it's a hell of a, it's a hell of a bomb to drop, you know?
Yeah. So you wanted to talk about Ellis, right?
Yeah.
Is that who you want to talk? The
Okay.
cocaine guy?
So Ellis is a shit,
Yeah.
right? Just a piece of shit. But I
Mhm.
loved that character for some reason so much.
That guy did great.
Like when he first shows up, I feel like I wrote down the line, but when you first meet him at the party,
Mhm.
uh where like his what's her name? Holly, his wife is like walking
Yeah.
away
Mhm.
and
I think
but
he asks like
he,
take you out to dinner or something.
yeah, and just immediately like the way he says it, you're like, "Oh, look at this douchebag." And then he just
Yep.
like proceeds to be a perfect douchebag for the rest of like
Mhm.
however long he's in that movie. Like
Yeah.
him bringing up it being a Rolex. Like every time he said something, I have a note from when I was watching it that's just like, this guy, man, like
Fuck
he's
this guy.
just
Yeah.
selling it. Like
Yeah.
the freaking, and then to be fair, I've no, you know, the hell was he thinking to get himself killed in the first place?
I
But
know.
they
Well,
do set that up
he
well.
he does a few bumps and like pumps himself up and he's like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of like Ellis, just sit down and you're not gonna save the day, you know? But he's all coked up and he's like, no, I am going to save the day.
No,
Hey, you know, big terrorist man, come talk to
yeah.
me. Like, dude,
I feel
come
like
okay.
I feel like he's like the kind of guy who just like call everybody babe. You're like,
Yeah,
relax, babe.
100%.
I'll take care of this. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just
And like they're poor I dude, I love to because he they butter him up a lot, you know, because Hans Gruber is super smart and he knows what he's doing, and so he butters up Ellis and go get him a Coke and a glass, and they're pouring him a Coke while he's on the radio with John, and John sees through it immediately. You know, he's like, "You do not know these men; they will kill you." please don't say you know me. And he's like, oh, he's doing his $1 million deals, because that's his justification. Is like, I make these $1 million deals. I can talk these terrorists out from under us. And boy, oh boy, it does not pay off well.
He's like, you are out of your element. Like you are out of your depth here. Do not. And then, sure enough, we all saw that coming. Let's be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
I do, though. This is somewhat unrelated, but I do love how everybody seems to hate John McClane for like no reason. Like when they first figure out that he's the one out there, like running around haunting people, Ellis is just like, oh, he's gonna get us killed. Like. For no reason, why you just met this person.
Why is that your first thought? Yeah.
And then that's still when Al's chief shows up, immediately he's like, no, that guy's an idiot. Like he's probably a terrorist himself. Like fuck this John guy, whoever that is. And it's like, there's no need for that.
And that he has the gall to come up to battered and bloodied John McClane at the end, embracing his wife and be like, McClane, personal damage, you're in trouble for property damage and all this stuff. Like, what the fuck? You're high. This guy just saved everybody.
Yeah. And like at this point I feel like it's pretty clear.
Yeah. Like he literally saved the day. You're still mad at him. You're right. Everybody's mad at John McClane for no reason. It's weird.
Everybody just hates him. Just cause.
Except for Al.
Oh, Al. And they become fast buddies, and you know what?
Yeah.
I bought it. I was fine with that.
Yeah, they're friendly. They had a nice little nod of acknowledgement at the end when they see each other for the first time.
Yeah, I do like Ginger just pointed out in the chat that John McClane is an anti-hero. That does remind me, especially like the first half of this movie, I was super on board with the fact that in essence, this was like a slasher movie almost, except like we were rooting for the slash, you know what I mean? Like, because at first it's just kind of creepy.
The counselors are terrorists.
Yeah.
And Jason Voorhees is, John McClane.
And like it's one thing when he's just kind of like sneaking around and like doing his little thing, but when he somewhat accidentally kills the one dude's brother, like that first guy, and then he sends him down in the elevator with like the shirt, and he's got now I have a machine gun, ho ho ho, written on it. Like as soon as that happened, I was like, okay, I'm into this. Like it's like being able to cheer for the ridiculous, like murderer just running around because he's the good guy.
He's the good guy, yeah. It's funny because I'm rewatching Barry on HBO right now, and Bill Hader is a hitman, but he only kills bad people, and so you are rooting for this killer, but he's killing bad people, so it's okay. It's like that.
Yeah, that's always a fun, I feel like situation to play around in, because he is a straight up horror villain for like most of this movie. And then
he's stalking.
And like the whole
writing their names down.
Yeah, him writing the names, and the first conversation he has with Hans when he's just like name dropping people, like that's so good.
Yep.
Like that's that like New York cop, hey, fuck you, I'm walking here, like that kind of shit that I'm super into as far as like Bruce Willis goes in this movie. Like he does that so damn well. And like when he gets on the roof the first time and he's got the radio and he's trying to like contact the police or whatever, and like the chick like dispatches like supervisor comes on, it's like, excuse me, this line is reserved for emergencies only, and I mean he's like, no fucking shit, lady, like he's just yelling at her.
Me, just get someone down here.
It's so good.
Yep. Yeah, he plays tense, high intensity very well. Maybe better than anyone in his heyday, for sure. Which is sad because Cop Out doesn't have a lot of those situations for him to excel in.
No, not necessarily at all. Yeah, no, I just thought I get a lot of this. I totally get. There was also a lot of little things that I liked, like even as tight as the movie was, like we were talking about earlier, I do like that there was a bunch of weird, like seemingly weird little things. There was like just enough to where I like bought all of this as like a real world, like just
Mhm.
silly things like the fact that it only happens twice, but for some reason this movie seems to just like hate that one news anchor for like no reason. Like when the news guy shows up and he's like, I'm taking the van, and like they're about to go on
Yeah.
like, on air or whatever, and he just like yells at the news anchor guy. And then
Mhm.
the only other time you see him, he's on with some kind of like uh hostage like expert or whatever, and he mentioned something
Mhm.
about it's like the Helsinki uh
Oh my God.
thing,
Yeah.
and
He's like
immediately
Helsinki,
he's like
Switzerland.
from
And he's like,
Switzerland, and they're like,
yeah,
no,
no, Finland.
and like that's just
Yeah.
a quick fuck you to that guy for no reason.
Yeah.
Like,
Very anti-journalist, very anti big news, outlets. Yeah. It's
yeah,
weird.
and that's the two FBI agents, Johnson and Johnson. The
Yeah.
fact them both being named Johnson, that's unnecessary, but
The
like
other
it was
one.
fun.
Totally.
And when he's like no relation, when they first meet, he's like, I'm Agent Johnson, this is Agent Johnson, no relation when they first meet the chief.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
also it's not, the joke is not delivered in such a way that it's like a movie joke. Like it's almost
Mhm.
given as if like this is like a joke he loves telling people,
100%.
and like because the captain almost like interrupts it, and then
Mhm.
they kind of like turn around, and then he's just like no relation, like he's just got to get it out because he just
Yeah.
thinks it's and
Yeah.
also the last yeah, when they're when they're in the helicopter,
Mhm.
when they're like they're
I
just
was
gonna
gonna.
like
I think I'm gonna say this.
shoot
Yeah.
through it, when
Yeah.
the one dude's just like hanging off with the fucking machine gun, and he's like, whoa,
Yeah.
just like Saigon, slick, and the other dude just like kind of laughs to himself. He's like, I was in junior
Yeah.
high, dickhead. Like that's
Yep.
such a real moment between these two like ridiculous,
Dude, totally. I kind of want a Johnson and Johnson like side movie of just those antics of
Yeah.
like, they have to be associated with each other because they have the same last name and they're like a duo, but they both don't really get along or vibe really well together, It's so funny.
Yeah, they're it's because there's such like real world seeming interactions, like,
Yeah.
and kind of, I mean, pretty unnecessary. Like the movie would have been fine
Mhm.
without those little bits, but like it was
100%.
just such a, I don't know, it added
It
some real
grounds it.
depth. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Agreed. I don't know if you caught this. One of my favorite little moments is when the SWAT team shows up and they're rushing towards the building. One of the guys uh runs through a thicket of roses and he goes like, "Ow," and like he gets his hand on the like for no reason. Like, what is that? And I actually go, so I was watching it today and I go, was that Richard Pryor? And I back it up and I'm like, I can't tell. And so I Google it, and there is a intense Reddit thread about whether or not that guy is an uncredited Richard Pryor.
Okay, yeah, because when I first saw him, that was my first thought, was like, I didn't know Richard Pryor was in this movie, because I also thought we were just gonna have like
That's
a
so
random
funny.
Richard Pryor running around also, like.
Yeah. Like, why did he prick his hand on the roses for no reason? Like, that's so funny, but for no reason. And then Huey Lewis from Huey Lewis in the News is the guy behind the computers who works with the terrorists. Like the guy
Oh,
who's
no shit.
standing next to Hans at the end when Bruce Willis comes out at the end and he goes, Hans, and he's got his wife. The guy next to him who's been in the movie the whole time, that's Huey Lewis from Huey Lewis in the News.
That is the titular Huey Lewis.
The
No shit, I
titular
did not
Huey
know
Lewis.
that.
Makes it to the end of Die Hard.
I do know I read, well, okay, actually I don't know if this is true. I'm obsessed with IMDb trivia, despite the fact that by all accounts it appears to be as trustworthy as like mid 2000s Wikipedia, like it's not a citable source. People are just making shit up on there. But
100%.
supposedly the one dude who like steals the candy bar when
Mm-hmm.
they're like bracing for, I think they're bracing for the like everybody to breach the building.
Yeah.
He supposedly he just like did that, and like
Really?
because of that, because they were changing the script the whole time they were shooting it, and they were just killing people all over the place. But because of that,
Mhm.
the dude who was writing it was like, that's an interesting character choice, and that's like why he makes it
Hmm.
almost to the end.
Interesting. That is so funny because it is totally random. Like he's standing there and then he looks down at the candy and he's like, "Hmm," and he like reaches around and grabs and
Yeah.
he's eating a Mars bar,
Yeah, and I like too,
Yeah.
like when you first see him, he's like starting to eat one candy bar, and by the time you cut back, he's like eating that one, and he's now eating another one. Like he's just been sitting there,
Mhm.
just like snacking the whole time.
Just snacking, yeah. That's so funny. Gendred said he was supposed to die early, he read, which is interesting.
Okay, yeah. So that gives me more confidence in
Mhm.
that little trivia moment. Similar, supposedly, which this probably I have more to say about when we move on to the next movie, but
Mhm.
the like basic just like human drama of emotional or like emotional bit to where it's just
Mhm.
like him trying to like save his wife thing
Mhm.
supposedly came from when they were writing the first draft, because none of the like him trying to like you know apologize to his wife stuff is apparently in the book. Like the book is like fairly different to what the movie goes in, but
Mhm.
supposedly the like whoever the first screenwriter was while he was writing it, he got in a fight with his wife and then went for a drive to like cool off or whatever, and ended up behind a truck that was carrying a bunch of fridges, and a
Mhm.
fridge, one of the boxes fell off and like landed on his car, but it
Mhm.
ended up being like an empty box, but if there was a fridge in it, it would have just like crushed him, and he was like, well,
Mhm.
that would have I'd have died, and like the last thing I did was get in a fight with my wife. Like, wouldn't it be a bummer if I was never able to like apologize or whatever? And that's where he like worked in the whole, that human element of it, where he's just at
Mhm.
the end of the day, John's just trying to get back to his wife. Like,
Yeah.
he's not trying to be anything special. He spends most of his time trying to find the cops so that they'll deal with it. Like, he's just
Mhm.
trying to get back to his wife.
Yeah.
And a lot of
Who
that, I
may
think,
or may not like him very much because her last name is different in the system when he shows up. He looks her up by Holly McLean and there's nobody. And he looks her up by her maiden name. And so she's using her maiden name. So it's like, oh, does she even really love you? But he's going all out just to save her.
just for like a chance, you know?
So I'm getting corrected in the chat, and apparently that guy is not actually Huey Lewis, which blows my mind because that is. I thought that I had read it, and I accept being corrected, but I thought that I read that it is. Dennis Hayden is credited
Dennis
as being that
Hayden.
character. That's crazy.
He looks remarkably like Huey Lewis though.
Yeah. Damn. Well, there you go. It's not Huey Lewis. I thought that the guy who did the America Home Makeover, whatever that guy's name
Oh,
is,
Ty Pennington?
I thought that Ty Pennington invented the fork in middle school, or I don't know what age I was, but I Wikipedia'd it for some reason. And it was on Ty Pennington's Wikipedia that he invented the fork, and that was his claim to fame. So I told that to people, and they were like, "No, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." And I was like, "You're right. That
You
is stupid. Of course he didn't invent the
know how
fork."
long forks have been around?
Yeah, yeah. I
Like,
just believed it.
old Ty Pennington. Ty
Yeah,
Pennington went to the same college as I did. I
that's
think that's
crazy.
probably the only reason I know his name.
Yeah, I
Oh
was
yeah,
wondering how you picked his name out so quick.
Guano just pointed out too. Yeah, we went to the
Same
same
college
college
as
as Ty.
Ty Pennington.
For a long time, when you Googled our college,
Yeah.
Ty Pennington came up as like in like the main like Google results page as like our primary notable alumni. Oh yeah, we also got Barb from Stranger
Barb
Things
from
season
Stranger
1.
Things season 1. That's
She
awesome.
she was there when we were there, which is fun,
Oh,
I guess.
so same time.
I'd never
Wow, that's cool.
I may have seen her. I've never met her. I have it on decent authority. She doesn't walk around looking like Barb. So God knows if I've ever interacted with her, but
I know that lady. She dressed just like this in
She's just walking
college.
around with like the glasses and the
The big
fucking
glass. Yeah,
yeah.
like it was I thought it was weird that she dressed up like she's in the 80s every day. So the question is, Die Hard as good as people say it is?
I don't know about you. I
Mhm.
gotta say, uh, yeah, I thought it was excellent. I get why everybody's talking about it.
I do too. I definitely agree with you. I get why people talk about it, but also was pleasantly surprised at how, like we were saying, kind of gushing over it, is how well crafted it is in its own right.
Yeah.
So
Like even without the, Bruce Willis of it all and, the yippee ki and all that. It was just a really well made movie. Which
yeah.
I think you said something to this effect earlier, but I am glad to have watched it trying to find things to write down for it. Cause yeah, I don't know if I
Mhm.
would have noticed some of it. But
Yeah,
like
same.
it's super well directed, super well edited. The writing is airtight. Like
Hmm.
I I'm now super interested. I'd love to see the sequels. Oh yeah, we do have one
Yeah,
big question that we also have to answer about this movie. But I would love to see the
yeah.
sequels just to see like
The
how
quality
quickly it turns into that like almost a lampoon of an action movie thing that we
for
get where
sure.
he's because I just from seeing the trailers, I know that like this John McClane's not in Die Hard or what was the one with it? He had a son, I think, in it.
Yeah, there's Die Harder, I think. Or
Sorry.
no, I don't know. It's Live Free, Die
Live
Hard.
Free or Die Hard.
Yeah.
That like because he's like jumping out of a helicopter or some shit in that trailer. Like
No, worse than that. He's landing a motorcycle jump into a moving helicopter. It's ridiculous.
yeah, see that? I would though. I think I would enjoy it would be okay. So the poster to Die Hard 2 just has in big bold letters Die Harder. That
Okay.
what genius
Which
marketing.
is so the second one is not bad per se, but it's not John McTiernan. So I really don't think the direction is as good. And it's very similar just in an airport. It's like let's do this again in a slightly different setting. Airport instead of a tall building.
Okay.
And it's very similar. The third one, Die Hard with a Vengeance, John McTiernan returns and I think is up to par, if in some ways better than this Die Hard. I really like Die Hard with a
Interesting.
Vengeance.
Okay. I do love me some Jeremy Irons. And I like
Jeremy Irons, yeah.
I like the brother motif that seems to be lining up
Hmm.
here because that the one dude, it being his brother that got turned into a very menacing, I guess, warning, the ho 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 guy.
Yep.
That being a big deal, and now for you to meet Han Gruber's brother, which also I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up. The what a face old Hans had, what a fall face old Alan Rickman had.
Great.
That was so good. It was
Good fall
it's
face.
one of those
Yeah.
scenes I'd seen 1,000 times, but still when it happens, like I wrote down
Yeah.
like yeah, what a fall face on Hans was what I wrote in my phone. Like what because it was just such a good he's
Yeah.
just genuinely like, terrified for a second there.
Yep. Yep.
Um
Yeah, I'm with Gendry. Didn't like 2, did like 3.
okay.
And the one, I think it's the fourth one, like Live Free or Die Hard. Um, the villain is Timothy Oliphant, which is I'm a fan of his, and so that one is pretty corny, but is not as bad as I remember. I don't know. Maybe we should have done that one instead of Cop Out, but uh,
Oh, that would have been
yeah, the
interesting.
Die Hard series gets very questionable.
Yeah, and I believe it was Guano pointed out that his son's actually in A Good Day to Die Hard.
A Good Day to Die
The
Hard. They got to
names
come up with the crazy ways to
yeah,
say Die Hard.
the names on this like
Yeah.
I feel like it's similar to all the Rambo First Blood of it all
Yeah. Yeah.
with that ridiculous naming convention.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we move on, we do have to answer a question that just about everybody here asked.
This will be the definitive answer to this question for all time.
Yeah. Would you call this a Christmas movie?
Okay. Here's my thoughtful response. Is it a Christmas movie? Yes. It takes place during Christmas. The reason he's in Los Angeles is for a Christmas party. You see Christmas type elements in the movie. Even the intro theme, when it says Die Hard on screen, you can hear it's a little actiony. It's like dun, 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 but there's a little ding ding ding. There's a little Christmas to it. Okay? Is it a good Christmas movie? No, because it's an action movie and because it's not about fucking Christmas spirit and shit and what.
Santa
is it a good
hasn't
Christmas
lost his
movie?
Powers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's not a good Christmas movie. But is it a Christmas movie? Undoubtedly.
I had to watching the whole thing, especially because a lot of what I heard about like talking to my roommates and stuff, Unrelento and Guano watch this every year for Christmas. Like when I brought up the fact that I'd never seen it, they were like, no shit. Like they were surprised I hadn't watched it with them, And so the whole time I was watching, I was like, okay, I got to see, is it just because it's, because there's other, like most of, what's his name? Shane Black's movies all take place on Christmas also, but like, that's not a whole big debate. But I think honestly when they get the safe opened and it plays for that moment, first of all, it's great. And like, it plays that famous orchestral, like the ba 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 ba, which was so good. But then it does like that pan around and then it stops on Hans Gruber and he's just like, Merry Christmas. Like once that happened, from then on, like I was on board. Yeah, I think it's a Christmas action movie. It's not about Christmas.
It's not about
but
Christmas.
yeah,
I think Tea Leaf said it well. It's not a Christmas themed movie, but it is a Christmas movie.
Yeah. And it does have a lot of the, it has like how important it is for family or whatever. That feels like a Christmassy theme, I get. Like it's got it's got so many of the elements, but yeah, there's just no Santa.
There's just no Santa.
Agreed.
It's not Christmas it's not Christmas Vacation, but it belongs on the list. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And also saying that it is or isn't a Christmas movie is kind of the same as saying moist is your least favorite word. Like no one's original for saying it anymore.
Yeah.
Everyone said it 1,000 times. You just need to accept it. No one likes the word moist, and Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas movie.
Just accept it.
I like the one person, I forget, I can't remember who brought it up. I should be able to find it pretty easy. But somebody said, Diggle said, if Die Hard's not a Christmas movie, Home Alone's not a Christmas movie.
Valid.
And also, I think, especially now, I feel like it's been widely accepted that the Harry Potter franchise are Christmas movies. Despite the fact that Christmas has nothing to do, aside from that one scene in one of those movies where they're like "Happy Christmas" to each other and like
Happy
he gets
Christmas,
a sweater.
Harry. Yeah.
Other than that, that has nothing to do with Christmas, and
very loose connections,
and yet those are accepted.
Than Die Hard.
So I feel like you definitely at this point you can't rightfully make the argument it's not.
I don't even want to hear their arguments.
So our official. The official answer, the last time anyone has to talk about it, because we've answered it, damn it.
Pound the gavel.
Die Hard is indeed a Christmas movie. Cool. I'm just kind of real quick trying to look through, make sure we didn't miss anything chat-wise.
I am pretty much on board with everything everybody's saying. Sometimes terrorists blow up buildings on Christmas. It's true.
I like hating when Ellis calls John Booby. I did notice, kind of speaking of that, everybody calls each other pal in this movie.
Hey, pal.
It's all like, listen, pal. Like everybody's just palling around.
Might be a sign of being 1989, and people said that more in the late 80s.
Yeah, it's just That's just how people talked. I think we're here at a really good consensus as far as
I think so
the
too.
chat. I thought it was great. That was a great movie. It was fun to watch him progressively just get more jacked. Like his tank top just slowly gets gross and grosser
And
and
then off.
grosser, and then he's just got it all. He's just shirtless for a while, and he's
It
so
got
sweaty.
so dirty. He's so sweaty
He's
and
so
dirty
sweaty.
and bloody.
And he's like creeping around the infrastructure of this building. Like he spends so much time in elevator shafts, and he's just like propping doors open and shit. And like
my last question would be, did it start the laughing hysterically with the villain in the final scene thing? You know, because you know how it's like kind of memed at this point to be like, you know, and then they start
Honestly,
laughing, and then what are we laughing about? Is that from Die Hard?
very well could be, right?
I don't know.
Because
It
that
works.
is because that's also that's one of those. I had never seen that scene or that little clip rather, but I've seen it parodied on like 4 different sitcoms of the whole like taping the gun to his back
Taping
and like
the thing,
you know the whole everybody's laughing for some reason like
yeah. So I wonder if that's from that, which is pretty iconic. But even if you haven't seen that movie, you know the trope. Like you know that trope. So
yeah, I just great. It's
I'm
just great.
sad. I wish we had some hotter takes about Die Hard, but Die Hard's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
It's a good it's a good movie. Everybody's right.
No hot
Again,
takes.
it's been talked to death. Everything we've said has been said 1,000 times, but
Yeah.
I'm glad I finally had a reason to be able to say the things. You know?
There you go. Yeah, we didn't tread new ground for sure. I doubt we did, but this show is about cementing things in you know reality, and the reality is that Die Hard's a good movie.
It's just a good movie, and
It's iconic.
I mean, you know, get over it, guys. Okay, I'm sorry. It's a good
Get over
movie.
it.
Chat.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess now should we skip forward in time to a movie released? Quick math. 22 years later. No. 12 years
22?
later. No, 22 years later.
No, 22. Yeah, because what is it? What year did it come out?
It's 2010.
2010.
This movie came out.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're gonna talk about this week's y'all were out here worried there wasn't gonna be any production value. I mean, that's talk about production value.
A year in production, well worth it.
Yeah, that is worth the 6 months. Yeah. So Cop Out, the I guess the yang to Die Hard's yin. I guess okay. So this one's not as popular. Should we, just for the sake of, should we like give a synopsis? Should we just like spoil this movie?
Yeah,
people?
I think all spoilers for sure. Spoiler warning, obviously.
Yeah.
We spoiled the shit out of Die Hard, but this one's also pretty old at this point. I think there's just as much time between Die Hard and this as there is between this and today's date, you know, so.
Yeah, because it's, and if you watch this and decide you want to check this movie out, it's on Netflix. So.
Yeah, Die Hard's on Hulu. This
is
is Cop Out's on Netflix. Yeah.
Okay, so just briefly, we've got Cop Out. We've got Bruce Willis doing he's still a classic New York City cop.
Yeah.
This time, though, specifically from Brooklyn, which that's cool. He's been with old Tracy Morgan. He's his partner. He's been with them for 9 years, and they're on a case trying to track down some. Actually, I don't even remember at this point. Was it drugs? I watched this last night.
Yeah.
Was it drugs that the case was based on, or was it murder?
No, it was a gang of drug dealers.
Okay, yeah.
So it was drugs, yeah.
So they're trying to get a hold of some drug dealers, and you know, shit goes sideways, and they get suspended. Classic. And then a surprising turn of events sends them back in the fold.
Yeah.
And that's Cop Out, directed by Kevin Smith.
But not written by Kevin Smith, which I think this was his first directorial not his directorial debut, as in he didn't write this script and he's just directing it, which is odd because you don't think of Kevin Smith as a you don't think of his camera movements and his cinematography. You think of his dialogue, and his weird Jay and Silent Bobness.
Yeah.
So odd.
And that's definitely, I think that's an interesting element to this movie that we can kind of jump into. But I guess what had you seen this before this?
No, so this was my first time seeing Cop Out.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did what were your just like initial thoughts,
So going into it, like obviously we picked this movie as the bad one because it's pretty widely regarded as a bad movie. It's got a Metacritic rating of 19, I think. So pretty poor. And that's going in, and coming out of it, I don't think it's that bad. It's not good. It's a mess, but it made me laugh more than I thought it would, for sure. And I actually think that Kevin did a fine job behind the camera. I don't think it's like hard to watch by any means. I think like that part of it is surprisingly decent for Kevin Smith. But I also think that if you're not a Tracy Morgan fan, that there's not really a saving grace to it, because he was mine. He made me chuckle. Anytime they tried to make Bruce be funny, it was a little hard. I think for him too. So that's where I came off of it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you for the most part. Especially too, like I don't know if Kevin Smith gets a lot of blame for this movie not doing well.
Mm-mm.
But I do think, like you said, like I think the direction was fine. I mean, it wasn't anything special.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah, exactly.
It's fine,
Yeah.
I will say, I think a lot of my opinions on this movie were hindered by the fact that, or not hindered, but I guess influenced by the fact that I watched both of these movies the last 2 nights, and I started with Die Hard for some reason, which was,
okay,
I think, pretty dumb, because this movie, like about halfway through, I have a note that's just like, this is just kind of boring. Like it was just sort of fine. Like I thought Tracy Morgan was really funny. I kept coming across moments that I thought were great, like were really funny little bits. But then the rest of it was just it was just a bunch of little things that annoyed me. Like I'm almost worried that I'm going to sound like snobbish talking about this, because
that's what we're here to do.
But like it was just because there were so many little things that at a certain point I could like stop overlooking the dumb, like lowest common denominator kind of shit throughout this. Yeah. Like right out of the gate, it opens with a shot of New York and a needle drop of No Sleep Till Brooklyn. No Sleep Till Brooklyn. I wonder what borough they're going to be in. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right. Exactly.
That's like the quintessential, like when somebody's trying to talk about like cliche freaking needle drops, like that's the example people just make. And it's not because of this movie. It's because it's such a clear, like staring you in the face thing to do. And like, there's just so many of those, I don't know, those things that it just slowly annoyed me over watching this movie.
Absolutely. There's parts of it, and that's what I mean by it being a mess, in that like there's some weird decisions of like, I can't believe that got it okay. Like a studio was like, we're gonna needle drop No Sleep Till Brooklyn in the opening.
Yep.
After the scrawl to the city, sweeping shot over the city. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, that'll be like, clever. Like,
yeah. Like, okay. But I do think that the bit, though it goes on a little too long, I think the bit of Tracy saying, I'm going to be the bad cop this time, and then doing lines from movies is funny, but they go probably like 6 or 7 versions too long and like, okay, now it's not funny.
Yeah, that too, and like that bit I thought was really good. But the fact that they like before he even goes in, he's like, "I want to be bad cop," and immediately Bruce Willis is like, "No, you're just gonna quote a bunch of movies, you know." And then while he's
Yep.
doing it, half the time, like he'll say something, and it'll cut back to Bruce Willis, and he'll be like, "This is the movie that's from." And like I feel like
Yeah.
if you didn't do like even if the audience didn't pick up on half, like if it took until a one line that you happen to know to figure out what the
Mhm.
joke was, I feel like that's
Yeah.
so much more funny. Like it's so much funnier than
Right.
spending the whole time pointing out that this is what he's doing, you know?
Yeah. It's like, here's a spoon. I'm gonna put the joke on the spoon and the punchline, and then you don't even have to open your mouth. I'm gonna open your mouth. I'm gonna spoon feed you this joke. It's
Mm,
like, dude, I'm not an idiot. Like, I hate being treated like that, especially in comedy. Like, you have to have a little respect for your audience. And that scene started with, because it doesn't always cut to Bruce doing that, but it devolves into that bit
mhm.
of him saying, "Oh, the color purple," and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
all right, now you're just gonna say what it's from.
And also like Bruce Willis in this movie specifically has the charisma of like a saltine cracker. So like it's not even him saying it also isn't the whole thing just kind of feels phoned in. And like I would
Yep.
be fascinated to find out how much like studio involvement like especially Kevin Smith got in it cuz some
Hmm.
of his just regardless to what you think of his filmography, I feel like one thing he is pretty decent at is just like he makes a joke and if you get it, you get it. You know, like he
Yeah.
doesn't do a lot of catering in his especially like his older, Clerks and Mallrats and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of stuff in this that kind of felt like answering a studio note more than
Yeah.
something they
I
wanted
I
to
don't
do.
know, but it definitely begs that question. I do know that, because I've gone to a couple shows with Kevin Smith. He does these things called An Evening with Kevin Smith, and he talks for like 3 hours and does a Q&A and stuff. And he talked about working with Tracy and Bruce and Sean William Scott and kind of the production of this movie. And the thing that I remember the most about that is that Bruce was not in a good mood for the whole production. Not very nice, not very cooperative,
Mhm.
not willing to do second, third takes. Um, Very frustrated when somebody broke and didn't, and it's a comedy.
Yeah.
So hopefully people are laughing a little, like you're gonna break more than on Die Hard. But um, yeah, so I know the production was a little bit tense because of that, and it feels like that,
Yeah.
kinda.
It does. There's I don't know, some of the performances especially like I don't want to just like be shitting on Bruce Willis, but
Yeah.
especially coming from watching him in Die Hard where it's just such a perfect, dialed into what exactly Bruce Willis is good at kind of role.
Hmm.
And like this is very clearly like there's even I feel like some subtle references to Die Hard just throughout. I mean, there's the one, direct
Obvious.
one
Yeah.
where he's like,
Yeah.
I've never heard of that movie or whatever. Which like, okay, fine, yeah, make that joke.
Yeah.
But there's just stuff like he loses a shoe at one point, like just a bunch of weird little things where
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, clearly either they wrote this hoping that Bruce Willis was going to be involved, or Bruce Willis got involved, and these two screenwriters got real excited and like added a couple little things. But it was
Yeah.
just so not as well delivered, you know?
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, it definitely seemed like he was farther along in his career, had kind of accepted himself as this action movie star. And if they had played more on, like, let's just pluck John McClane out of Die Hard and put him as Tracy Morgan's partner in this comedy, that dynamic is maybe what they were going for.
Hmm.
And it just, something didn't hit. And to some extent that is Kevin's fault, because you do have to ask for extra takes and do that. But if
Yeah.
the big star, like, sorry, Kevin Smith doesn't have as much Hollywood swing as Bruce. So if Bruce says no, we're moving on. You know, Kevin is like, okay, I guess we're moving on. You know what I mean?
All
So
right. Yeah.
yeah.
I also not to I guess I mean I don't have a ton to say about it, but not to like keep harkening on this similarity to Die Hard, but I also
Mhm.
think I thought the movie I feel like there's not enough work being done for the like internal stakes you'd call them. Like the external stake, like it's a it's a pretty cut and dry buddy cop movie. There's bad
Yeah.
guys, and they gotta stop the bad guys, and there's this background stuff about him trying to like pay for his daughter's wedding, and that's the reason like
Yeah.
he's in the and I guess that works insofar as it's because of the card that he gets dragged back into the like case stuff. But I didn't care
Hmm.
about any of that at all.
Hmm.
And I think probably because I just seen Die Hard, but the unavoidable to me like comparison between how well done the like human element of it's just a man trying to get back to his wife stuff
Yeah.
of Die Hard compared to this like half-assed like oh yeah, I guess he's doing it for his daughter thing.
Hmm.
Like it just didn't I didn't care about it at all.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think part of that is the script is pretty generic. Like you said, it's a very cut and dry buddy cop movie. So what's your point? Like there has to be a reason that you're doing a buddy cop movie
Mm-hmm.
because it's been done 1,000 times before. So like what is your version of this? And their version of that was, I think, the Bruce Willis John McClane thing playing off of goofy Tracy Morgan, and it just never, you never really see that blossom. You never see it.
Yeah.
The seed is planted very early on. They're like, "Oh, we've been partners for so long, and okay, let's see, where this goes." They're buddies, they know each other, and then all these subplots of, you know, and granted, Tracy's infidelity, his cheating wife subplot is more entertaining than the I need to pay for my daughter's stuff, subplot, but they're so generic.
Yeah.
It's like, what was your well, I don't even know what your inspiration for this was.
What did you think about the whole like the whole yeah, him worrying his wife is cheating on him. Like I
Mhm.
every time that got brought up, like you said, it is way more entertaining than whatever like B plot was going on in Bruce's life. But also
Mhm.
it's so like needlessly like it has nothing to do with anything like
Mhm.
thematically or like it's
Yeah.
just there.
Mhm.
And that I don't know, that threw me so much of this movie kind of felt like I did like parts of this movie. I plan to bring up some things I like. I feel like we're just like shitting on it.
Definitely.
Uh but I felt like so much of this movie almost felt like it was padding for time. Cuz like
Yeah,
it's
it felt a lot
how long
longer than it
is it?
needed to be.
It's an hour
Dude, I wouldn't be
47. So
okay.
it's just barely movie length, you know? It
Mhm.
has maybe
Mhm.
like 10, 15 extra minutes. But like the whole plot with Tracy Morgan and like his wife has nothing to do with anything. That's just like dropped out of another movie into this
Yep.
one for no reason. And like
Mhm.
a lot too, I don't remember what it was that you said earlier, but it made me think of the fact, yeah, like I liked a lot of the times that they let Tracy Morgan just go, just like continue
Mhm.
to just like ramble. Like when they're trying to remember what he was talking about, but when they're camping out, I guess when they first find Sean William Scott, when they've like
Mhm.
followed him to this house that he's gonna like steal, and he's like taking a shit in the house or whatever, and Tracy Morgan just starts going on a run about how like he never shits in public, but like when he
Mhm.
gets home, then it's like going and he's just rambling for what feels like 45 seconds. And in my opinion, it's absolutely hilarious. Like they just like
Yeah.
let him run. But
Yep.
on the flip side, so many of the like shot reverse shot, just like two people interactions felt like they
Mhm.
went on twice as long as they needed to.
100%.
Like it almost felt like a like when you see like the extended cut of like an Adam McKay movie or something, and
Mhm.
really it's just like it's the improv bits that just weren't worth keeping in the movie. They just throw them
Y
all in so each conversation lasts like 10 minutes. That's what it
Yep.
felt like watching it. But this is like the
Yes.
final cut, you know?
Yes, very well put. That is exactly what I was trying to. That's how I felt, and you articulated it exactly how I felt. And that's what I meant earlier too. Of like this movie is not as bad as I think people say it is, but you have to be a Tracy Morgan fan because he's the only thing that saves it. And like
Mm-hmm.
I also think that those rants are very funny, but I know people who don't like Tracy Morgan's style of humor.
Yep.
And so if you're not into that, there's really nothing about this movie that you're going to enjoy. Um,
Yeah, because that is
because
really
Sean William Scott doesn't even bring a lot of comedy to the table. Like his mocking thing is the only thing. That's like his only bit.
mm-hmm.
Like you're gonna make Sean William Scott, who is a pretty good comedic actor, just do the child. I'm gonna say what you're saying at the same time as you, like copying you. Like,
Yeah,
man,
he's got that and making jokes about having sex with Tracy Morgan's wife. And he does both of those bits 3 times.
yeah,
And he's not in the I remember cuz I saw this during the Pirate Bay days and I remember thinking it was fine, but I was also like 19 and stoned probably. So, I remember Sean William Scott being like in this movie.
yeah.
You know, like for like
But
way
he's
more than but he's barely in it at all. Like it
Mhm.
almost begs like I'm not positive why he's in it in the first like he
Yeah.
serves like one narrative purpose and then the rest
Mhm.
of it he's just like he just shows back up and he's annoying for a little while and then he just like dies.
Yeah,
Which I
yeah.
did
He falls off the building, which is
I did like him falling off the
yeah,
building. That was clearly he's not dead. Like cuz he comes back in
yeah,
like the after credits or whatever and he's
right.
alive in the body bag or whatever, but it was
Oh my
funny
god, I
watching
actually
him.
forgot about.
Yeah, because he does in that he does the
Uh,
same shit with the like. There's like a corner or whatever, and she just like wheels in a table with a body bag on it, and then she starts talking on the phone, and he starts doing the mimicking thing
mhm.
again, and like that's how you
Oh
find out that
yeah,
Sean William Scott's not dead. But
yeah,
yeah, I did enjoy like him suddenly dying. I thought was funny,
yeah,
but otherwise, like it was kind of he felt just like thrown in because it was 2010 and Sean William Scott was still like kind of a guy, you know?
yeah. I think he was on the out. You know, as far as Hollywood goes, I don't know if he had substance abuse problems or what or what happened to him, but he was. It's not like it was off the heels of American Pie 2 or something, you know, but it's he was still way more relevant than he was today, and they severely underutilized him,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that's the script's fault.
We're especially thinking back to which I also haven't seen this movie in about as long a time, so maybe it's not great either. But I feel like this came out at around the same time as Role Models did with him and Paul Rudd.
That's a good
And I
question.
remember that being funny.
Very funny. Yeah, I actually that's 2008. So this is 2
2008.
years
Okay.
after that. So you're right. Maybe it wasn't, you know, he wasn't on the out. I think Role Models was a pretty big success, I
Yeah, and
think.
I remember Sean William Scott being very funny in that.
Very funny. So, yeah, that correct me again. So then he's just really underutilized in this. I don't get it. Um but
Yeah, it's
yeah, I I'm surprised at Kevin, honestly, because it's not like horribly shot and because he's just not a director, you know.
no,
He
yeah.
has a lot of I know his DP for most of his movies is this guy named David Klein, and you know, they're mostly all just like medium two shots, you know,
Yeah, there's a
waist
lot of
down.
the camera stays in one place or it's like very
Yeah.
shoddily handheld like
Yeah, exactly. So, you know,
yeah.
taking the big step up to Hollywood and doing this big movie with Tracy and Bruce, it was competent, you know.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's not nothing to write home about. Like I'm not the only reason it's worth noting the direction is because it's Kevin Smith. You know what I mean?
hmm And yeah, I do have to point out, yeah, so DP being the director of photography,
Yes, not double
aka
penetration.
yeah, which is funny because that's a
Which is a
joke
joke.
made in this
Oh
movie.
my
Yeah.
god. That's funny.
Because yeah, that's one of the multiple of the same bits that Sean William Scott has. He's got his DP joke and his ATM joke.
Wow. I didn't even mean to do that.
Yeah, but yes, that's
Hilarious.
director of photography. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I think you're right. It is kind of a bummer that this movie was so poorly received because I know
Hmm.
I'm trying to think of what does Kevin Smith's filmography look like around this time. This is
Gosh, I think
just
this is like post Jersey Girl.
yeah, because I know that one.
Um,
I've never seen that, but I know that one
I
went
have,
poorly, right?
and it did severely go poorly. Yeah. Um, it was still written and directed by him. It was still like in his View Askew universe,
Mm-hmm.
but uh it was not good. Really, really shoddy. I think because he had just had his kid Harley Quinn, and so it was about that, and he just has a harder time writing about that than he does about Star Wars and boobs and dicks and farts, you know?
Right. Yeah, because I guess so. It looks like he did Cop Out, and then the following year he did Red State, which is a movie I know very little about. But I think that's
I
another.
that's when that's his first written and directed movie that is outside of the View Askew universe.
Okay.
So he said like I'm done with the View Askew universe. I'm leaving Jay and Silent Bob behind, and I'm gonna do a horror movie. And so it's a horror movie, and it's actually really good. I actually really enjoy it. Um, but this cop out is so strange because he's just the director, you
Yeah,
know? So,
and it is like you said. I do. Yeah, I almost feel bad in that it's because I have to imagine this was like a stressful thing to embark on, just being
mhm,
director, and this is more like just Hollywood studio system kind of stuff, and
yeah.
for it to be received so poorly when
Mhm,
I most of it's not that. But he's probably I like you were saying earlier. It's not poorly directed.
yeah.
It's just not
It's
great.
it's just not great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are things like I laughed way more than I thought I would, just based on the rating and the stories that I've heard. I went into this like not with very low expectations, and maybe that's why. But it definitely made me laugh more than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Um,
It is.
but I do see its flaws, you know,
Yeah, because
because
there
they're
are
very apparent.
there are though. I guess now that we've shit on it for like a while at this point, I do a couple bits I thought were really like the early in. It's somewhere around the 6:30 mark. If
Okay.
anybody wants to pull it up on Netflix, I don't know why I wrote that down, but when Tracy Morgan's dressed up as a phone when he's doing undercover stuff and he's just like yelling at
Hmm.
people, it's a quick cut where it cuts to him as somebody walks by and he's like, "You should use me to call your mother," and then like it just cuts away. That's so funny to me. Like I remember quoting
Yep.
that when I first saw it. Uh, the all the like like buddy cop trope stuff I thought
Hmm.
the captain was fine. The rival cops with what's his name and the dude from the OC, um Kevin
Oh
Pollak
yeah,
and Adam Brody,
Adam
who
Brody.
by the way I love. I wish he was in more things. Adam Brody should
I
be a
do
bigger
really
star than
like,
he is. He's so good and everything you see him in he's
dude.
great.
That is so funny because I've always thought that, and no one's ever said that to me.
Yeah,
So that's really cool. Yeah,
because
I totally agree.
I thought they were great.
Hmm.
They're also their chemistry, like when they're like showing up and have the whole little quippy interaction with Tracy Morgan and Bruce after they got yelled at by the captain and like suspended and stuff, and like their little back and forth
Hmm.
quips. I think like that dialogue interaction I thought was great. Like
Yeah.
when they're like pretending to be on the phone, they're talking about uh having seen a movie where it was De Niro and somebody else, and then it cuts back
Hmm.
to the rival cops. And they're like, I kind of like the idea of so and so and De
Yeah.
Niro playing us, and the what's his name, Frank Pollock or no Kevin Pollock, when
Kevin
he does
Pollak.
the quick like little bit like his little like like
Yeah.
quick little De Niro impression, like stuff like that I
Yeah.
thought was really good.
Yeah, because that's the really disappointing thing about the movie is like I see the potential. There is a really good baseline of characters and the improvability, and just the idea I think is good. And you brought up Adam McKay earlier. Him and Will Ferrell kind of took this idea and did it well in The Other Guys.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because, yeah, I think it was about the time of that interaction with the rival cops that it hit me. I was like, this movie's kind of like just like a worse version of The Other Guys. Like, what
Yeah.
makes this movie somewhat entertaining, The Other Guys just knocks out of the park. Like,
Yep.
because, yeah, it is. Because it's almost like they didn't lean in enough to the kind of ridiculousness of, because there's stuff like, I don't know if this is on purpose or not, but it's very clear to me that Bruce and Tracy, I'm just going to call them that. What are their actual, Jimmy and Paul, I guess are the character names.
Paul is one for sure.
But the two of them are horrible cops. Like the first time you see them doing any cop stuff, it's just like the interrogation is kind of fun, but then, you know, Tracy Morgan goes undercover and he's clearly really bad at it. And Bruce Willis is just chilling in his car, doing nothing. And then the guy they're like trying to get to, you know, the guy they arrested that they're trying to like, you know, have wear a wire and all that kind of good stuff gets just shot and killed. And you're like, well, that's a bummer, I guess. But like, I couldn't tell if it's supposed to be like funny. Like, are they supposed to be bad cops? Because then at the end, they're like kind of good cops. Like, I don't know. The whole thing, like if they just I want to say if they just leaned into them kind of being bad cops, but then like pulling it off in a similar kind of way that like John McClane's just a dude who pulls it off. That would be funnier. But also I think that's just because I love the movie The Other Guys. I think what I'm really thinking is if they just made The Other Guys, it would have been good. And like clearly that wouldn't have, you know?
Yeah. And you said this was 2010, right?
Yeah, 2010.
So it's the same goddamn year that The Other Guys came out.
Oh, no joke.
No joke. 2010. So I'm actually curious as to which one came out first. This came out August 5th, 2010. Cop Out came out February 2010. Okay. Now, I'm not saying these ideas were probably being talked about. These projects were in production at similar times.
Oh, yeah.
Which is so weird.
I wonder if it's one of those, because I feel like I've seen recently, like trying to find them, seen interviews with Kevin Smith talking about how like the buddy cop movie genre was kind of dead at that point. Like I'm wondering if that was like a hot thing at the time, like
maybe
like the idea being shopped around. But yeah, it's wild that they came out months apart because
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, what I think this movie did well, other guys just did like way better.
Yeah.
You know?
Why like obviously Tracy Morgan and Rashida Jones, I don't buy them as a couple at all. So let's dive into that, you know, and make it so that Will Ferrell and Eva, or what's her name?
Oh, Eva Longoria.
You know,
is that her name?
Like, no, it's not Eva Longoria. It's shit. I just had it up. Hold on.
Mendes.
Hold on. Eva Mendes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make it so she's obsessed with him, and Will Ferrell's off put by her. You know, and it's like, what are you doing? You know, that's fun.
I didn't even think about that connection. Like,
yeah.
Because the whole Rashida Jones, nothing against Tracy Morgan or like, you know, his looks or anything like that. But I don't buy that coupling for a second. If anything, because Tracy Morgan's just like a big, loud, goofy guy. And like Rashida Jones is such a mature presence.
Elegant.
Like, you know, And at no point was I like, I think that's part of why I didn't care at all about whether or not she was cheating, because like, why are y'all together in the first place? But the fact that like, it's a similar, why are these two people together thing as the other guys? Like,
that's not the joke. The joke between that is to flip the norm and have, you know, her obsessed with him, you know? So yeah, like you're saying, there's so many things in the Other Guys that Cop Out had that the Other Guys does. Which is sad because it has potential. Kevin Smith is if he had maybe more ability to write a joke for the script, and I think you probably, my guess is that you nailed it on the head with studio and Bruce, you know, like intercepting and like we need to do it this way, and a lot of the actual creativity does not come from people behind the camera or on the stage, you know?
Yeah, I did feel like a lot of choices seem to be made for the sole I'm saying this as if I've ever made a movie. I mean,
Yeah.
I have
Same.
very outside perspective on how these things are done, but I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of things were done because like a dumb person might not get it otherwise, you know? Like it was
Yeah.
all just there were jokes that
Mhm.
seemed to be explained, or if they weren't, is because it was very like lowbrow, which I mean it's Kevin Smith. Like, you know, Kevin
Mhm.
Smith's known for, as you called it earlier, you know, what was it, Star Wars and dicks and, you know. Hey, I
Yeah, there
deafened
you go.
myself.
Okay.
Hey, I caught it this
Yep.
time.
Yeah. I panicked.
Yeah, because I did that for quite some time earlier.
Yep.
But
Oh,
yeah,
see,
no,
gendered, I feel the same way. I hate explained jokes so much. You know, being treated like a dummy as an audience member in comedy irks me the most.
hmm I think I think there is a place for that. You know, trying to hit as many audience members as possible. You know, like
Yeah,
when
for
a
sure.
joke might be over explained in like a Marvel movie, like I get that from like a
100%.
business
Yeah.
perspective, but like this is a rated R comedy. I feel like you should,
Exactly.
if you don't get the joke, you just don't get the joke. You know, like,
Yeah, move on. Yeah.
and I think
Pick your audience and stick with it, you know. Don't like you said, don't make a rated R movie and then explain your I don't know. Yeah, you don't explain your jokes like that. Or make Sean William Scott do the copying thing, you know.
yeah,
Come
the
on.
the joke
What are we
everyone
doing?
knows from, that's like one of those early jokes that you know you learn or do at like 6, which I know is
Yeah.
part of the joke because it's such a juvenile thing, but like I don't,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know, it feels like they didn't really
Yeah.
let him do like anything. We already talked at this point, we're just like, I feel like we're
We're
kicking
retreading
these
ground,
things.
yeah.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to think if oh, one thing I did want to bring up now that we've mentioned that Sean William Scott is dead, and that
Mhm.
what the hell was with Tracy Morgan being with Rashida Jones, and why was this a storyline? I did
Mhm.
notice, this has nothing to do with anything, but after Sean William Scott dies, right? They're like,
Mhm.
Bruce is like, well, let's throw him in a dumpster or something, and Tracy Morgan's like, nah, because they like became friends or something, I guess. So he throws him in the
Mhm.
back of the car, right? And then Bruce Willis is like, all right, I'm gonna go get my card and like, you know, sneak in there or whatever. I'm gonna go die hard this shit for a second. And Tracy Morgan's like, whatever. And then he gets back in the car, and there's a whole moment where he's like watching the rest of the nanny cam tape because he set up the
Mhm.
nanny cam, and it looks like she's definitely cheating on him, but they don't
Yeah.
watch it far enough. So then this is the reveal that she knows that it's a nanny cam, and like she's just trying to like get his, you know, goad him or whatever. And so then like
Mhm.
he figures out that she's not cheating, and he's like cheering and stuff, and like, oh, he's happy because, you know, she's faithful, blah 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 blah. The whole time there's just a dead body in the back seat.
I didn't
That
even
whole
think about that.
sequence, dead Sean William Scott's just laying in the back seat the whole time he's doing that.
Yeah.
What the,
That's
like,
funny. That is
uh,
so strange.
that and
I didn't think about that.
the only other dumb thing I noticed in that sequence is when Bruce Willis shows up for the whole third act, like at the house, he's just got a bandage on his arm.
Oh
And I
yeah.
don't know why. When did he hurt himself? I didn't go
Dude, I
back
have
and
no
check, but
idea.
I can't remember him. He was
I
just
literally
bandaged,
just watched it a couple hours ago and I don't remember, but I do remember the bandage. I
right?
just didn't question it. Maybe it's like a deleted scene, like some scene that they shot and then it was bad and now he has a bandage.
That could, honestly, yeah, that is probably what it is. But I
With as
just,
much studio involvement that probably happened, you know, they're like, yeah, cut that. Okay, but he has a bandage in this scene now. It
they're
doesn't
like,
matter.
I don't care. No, these
Our
people aren't
audience
going
is
to notice.
stupid.
Yeah, there's a dead
Yeah.
guy in the back of this car. Nobody cares. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess the last to end my random things I noticed on a high note, Fred Armisen. That's always a fun surprise.
Ah,
He was in it.
yes.
I mean, he didn't do
Yes.
anything, but I saw him and I was like, oh shit, this guy.
It's all I did the same thing. I was like, oh, I didn't know Fred Armisen was
Yeah.
in this.
That's always, I'm
He's
pro seeing him show up in anything for whatever reason.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't matter. That's so funny. I thought the same thing. That's how I know this show's gonna do well because we both like Adam Brody. We're both excited to see Fred Armisen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these little things.
I'm
that
really
we
excited about
like.
this Adam Brody connection because
Yeah,
he's
me
under,
too.
nobody talks about him. We need to get the
Never.
word out. That's, if we do nothing with this show, we got to make sure people start putting some respect on Adam Brody's name.
Hashtag where's Adam Brody?
Hashtag where's Adam Brody?
Yeah, so the question is Cop Out as bad as everyone says?
Uh, I think you said it really well earlier that I was expecting this to be a lot worse than it was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it quite deserves, because I brought it up because I just so happened to have heard on multiple like podcasts and like YouTube videos and stuff. It just happened to got mentioned as an example of a
Mm-hmm.
horrible movie. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was that bad. I think it
I
was mostly
completely
just
agree.
fine.
Yeah, it's it's not the hot garbage that I think it's portrayed as or that it's thought of as in the mind space of people. Um, but it is in no means good.
Yeah.
So like I'm not saying you have to go watch it, but I'm gonna remember some of the Tracy Morgan jokes. Like they're pretty funny. Tracy Morgan's pretty funny. And um yeah, it's not the highlight of anyone's career who partook in that movie,
Yeah.
but should it be like a big red X? Maybe not.
It's, like if you're with somebody who happens to want to watch it, I'd be
Yeah.
like, yeah, sure. You know, okay.
Yeah.
I will
It's
say,
fine.
do not watch it after Die Hard.
Yeah, that
I
was a big mistake.
Yeah, I think that was a poor call. I should probably adjust the order that I watch things the next time we do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I
that
purposely
was,
watched Cop Out first today.
yeah, it was not
Yep.
coming off of Die Hard. It was an annoying movie. I was more annoyed with it than anything.
For sure. Because where Die Hard is, you're like the pacing is so good that it's a little longer, I think, than Cop Out. It's I think closer to the 2 hour mark, but um doesn't feel it. This is 147 minutes and feels like Apocalypse Now
Yep.
Redux. It's like, dude, we're like we got 45 minutes left, so it's one of those movies that's like, I can't believe this is going on
I
so long.
Halfway through this, I paused it to go make some food and
Yeah.
just like microwave some food. And
Yeah.
I pulled out my iPad and started to pull up Netflix so I could just keep watching it. And I just
Mhm.
watched YouTube videos instead. Like I just like stopped watching this for like 15 minutes to watch anything else. And then I like came back. Like I needed like an
Yeah.
intermission. And it's not a long movie. It's just
No, but
it drags.
you know, yeah, and that's not doing anything for our argument of saying it's not as bad as people say it is,
Yeah.
but just trust us.
It's all in all, if you're 19 and you've had a few drinks and
Mhm,
your buddy pulls out a hard drive and he's like, "You want to watch Cop Out?"
mhm.
I'd say go for it.
Yeah. I'm more surprised. I'm glad that we had a hot take this episode because of Die Hard being good. I'm just glad that this one, I'm glad to say that our bad movie is good. I think that's a good first episode. Not good, but our bad movie is not as bad as people say. Because it would be pretty lame if we were like, yep, Die Hard's as good as everyone says it is, and Cop Out's as bad as everyone. Yep,
Yep,
good.
if we were
Okay,
just
so
like,
what are we doing?
turns out the rumors are
Uh,
all true. You should
yeah,
just check Rotten Tomatoes, I guess.
yeah. I'm glad to scrub this off of like a Kevin Smith, down note, because I don't think it's a bad mark on Kevin Smith. I think it's like it's fine, right?
Yeah.
Like we said. And I'm a big Kevin Smith fan, so I'm glad to see he doesn't have this like, what did you do? This pile of trash, it's definitely not that.
I do think, because I'm pretty sure this is one of the only movies that he doesn't also write. And I do think if it did
Yeah.
anything good, it kind of seems like it's nipped that in the like. He was like,
Mhm.
okay, no, I'm just gonna make my movies from now on, and I think that was a really good call.
Yeah. Yes. I love that notion. That's
Yeah.
a great notion to end on.
In that sense, I would say I'm glad that Cop Out. I'm glad it's a movie. You know what? I'm gonna go that far,
Yeah.
and it put some money in Adam Brody's bank, and that's
Dude,
what really
there you
matters.
go.
Yeah.
There you fucking go. I love that. Hashtag where's Adam Brody?
Hashtag. Let's get it trending, people.
37 million to make that movie. That's crazy. In
To make
2010
Cop
money,
Out?
that's like 100 million. Yeah. That's all like 20 mil of that is Bruce Willis's paycheck for sure.
Oh yeah, that is so yeah. That was objectively a flop. They lost money.
To answer Diggle's question, Bruce did actually recently announce that he has some kind of degenerative brain disease, and he has quit acting for good. You know, because he's been pumping out these like straight to DVD kind of shitty movies that Red Letter Media has been dunking on for the last couple of years. So I really didn't want this, and I don't think we did. I didn't want this to be a Bruce Willis shit fest because I do love Bruce Willis, and he has officially quit acting, and that's sad because he's a good guy.
He struggles like speaking and stuff, doesn't he? Like in that
Exactly,
like a big part of what it. Yeah, and it is a bummer because I feel like for a while he was like an easy punching bag because there was there was that seemingly accepted rumor that he had like clauses in his contracts these days where it was like, I'm only going to work for like 3 days tops and I need at least $1 million a day. And everybody was like, oh, look at this asshole. But like now, like it seems like most of it was like, you know, he's just like banking stuff away for his family and stuff. And like,
that's right.
I think as much as Kevin Smith hates the guy, I have no reason to think he's too big of a big dick.
Yeah,
so I don't think so. I you know, you hate to see it, and I now want to go back and watch all the diehards.
You should,
and I need to see.
I will too.
I also need to see Fifth Element again. Somebody, I think Unrelento brought that up like a long time ago, and I haven't seen that.
Love that movie.
That's another movie I think I've only seen on cable because I think my grandmother liked it, and so anytime it came on like TBS or something when we were at her house, she would just have it on.
Hell yeah,
but,
same here. I might be your grandma.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, the beard's new, but you know, I guess it has been a while.
Yeah. Fifth Element is so good. I've seen that. I probably watched Fifth Element twice a year. I'm not gonna be I'm not gonna lie. I watch Fifth Element a lot, and that director is not great. Like he did Leon the Professional, and then Fifth Element, and everything else has been not great.
Yeah, because his most recent one was the one with that guy who looks villainous just in real life.
Yeah, dude. His name's like Luke.
It's not Jupiter something, but
Besson, I think his name is.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
Valerian and the City of fucking Thousand Planets.
Yeah.
Oh, that movie sucked.
And I've heard nothing but terrible things about that.
Anyways, Fifth Element's awesome.
Yeah. So I guess that's our biggest takeaway here on the Bruce Willis episode is, you know, Bruce Willis, not so bad.
He's not so bad.
He's not so bad. And even bad Bruce Willis isn't. Well, I don't know. Bad Bruce Willis probably is still. Oh my God. I just realized I've gone this whole time. Sorry. 1 second. This is such a frustrating thing. I set up lights.
Oh my gosh.
I've just been sitting here with a stupid lamp on this whole time. Like, this doesn't look that much better, but Jesus, it is better than what it has been. Oh, that's so disappointing. We've been doing this for 2 hours.
First episode.
Baby. Oh my God.
First episode blues.
Oh well.
It's okay.
So yeah, sorry to derail us there. Yeah, so that's
hey, thanks for the plug.
That's Bruce Willis.
Derailed. Yeah, Bruce Willis is great. Not a bad guy. And to sum it up, Die Hard is as good as everyone says. You should go watch it. And Cop Out is not as bad as everyone says. So don't I don't even know what to say about it.
Maybe don't watch it, but like don't just assume it's terrible, I guess. That's
take our word for it. The real takeaway is to do your own research, okay?
Exactly.
Don't just believe what people say, because there are some redeeming qualities to Cop Out.
Don't be a sheep.
Don't be a sheep. Dude, that was so much fun.
So I guess I feel like let me get rid of Cop Out. So yeah, that was CinemaScope'd. I guess for the polished bit, I should say thank you to everybody anybody who's watching this, who's listening to it. This is gonna be trimmed up into a video. We're gonna be slapping over on the GCA Films YouTube page.
Yes.
I'm thinking we might do audio form. Probably. I don't know how to.
If you want it,
that.
let's say ask for it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
If you would like to, if you think people would listen to this, that'd be cool. Special thank you to the people here in the chat as we're doing this live, because we do stream these live. If you're watching this at home and you're like, I wonder how they recorded that, we do it live. Okay. In fact,
Wow.
I think I could say now the next episode will be stream lived over on your channel, right?
Yeah, let's do it. So next episode, which we'll announce everywhere. So get in the Discords, follow us on Twitter, wherever you want to.
Check out all them links
everywhere.
and
Yeah, check out all those links. But yeah, the next episode when it airs will be on twitch.tv/derailedgames. And we'll announce what movies we're going to talk about and what the theme is and all that. So
yeah, so if you like this and you wanna be part of the conversation next time, definitely keep an eye on those announcements, watch the movies, and then get over there on the Derailed Games. And yeah, and this will be, for Bruce Willis. I've been Tyler.
I've been Aaron.
And we'll close us out on one of your famous catchphrases, Aaron.
Snack 'em till they crack 'em.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, until next month. And then it'll probably do that Waste Our Time song again as it fades away. Yeah, so that's that video. But yeah, this was a lot of fun.
So much fun.
Did this seem cool?